GDPR principles are the bedrock of the framework, and to implement GDPR properly, it is integral that you understand what GDPR principles are, what they mean, and how to interpret them. Let's start off with a couple of basics about GDPR. Here's probably what you already know. GDPR stands for General Data Protection Regulation. It was introduced in 2018 by the European Union to protect its citizens from data violations, but is in fact global in its reach, given that any company located anywhere in the world that wants to do business with an EU citizen must comply with it. You can also have your business certified as GDPR compliant. There's a video in the top right corner if you want to learn more about that. So you can prove to your customers, companies, and partners that you take data security seriously. Now, Article 5 lays down 7 GDPR principles in total: lawfulness, fairness, and transparency, purpose limitation, data minimization, accuracy, storage limitation, integrity and confidentiality, and accountability. We're going to cover all of them, starting with number 1, lawfulness. In a word, when you're processing personal data, you should have a good reason for doing so. Be honest and transparent about what you're collecting, and don't break the promises you make. There's 6 ways to lawfully collect data: by collecting consent, by drawing it up in a contract, if you need the data to fulfill a legal obligation, if you need to protect vital interests, when you're doing a task in public interest, and if you can prove legitimate interest that doesn't override the individual's rights. Lawfulness means that you collect the data legally. Fairness is staying true to the data related promises you make, and transparency is about being honest about who you are, why you're collecting data, and how you'll use it. Any deviance on these 3 and it opens you up to penalties. Number 2, purpose limitation. Once you've entered into agreements about what you're going to collect, you can't unilaterally amend those agreements after the fact. This second principle dictates that data is, and I quote, collected for specified, explicit, and legitimate purposes only. You can only process data limited to the purposes that you specified at the time of its collection. So, if you asked for an email ID to send somebody a newsletter, you can't then use that email ID to sign them up for a webinar. And if you want to alter or amend these purposes, you have to collect consent again, while highlighting what it is that has changed since the original collection. Number 3, data minimization. Collect the smallest amount of data you need for the job you're doing. So you're an e-commerce store. You need a trove of information about your customer to fulfill their order: first name, address, email ID, phone numbers, zip codes, etc. However, and we can use the example of the newsletter again, for that, you don't need any information beyond a name and email ID, and so you should not collect anything more than that. So, in summation, as a business, collect only the base level data that you need to fulfill the specific purpose you've outlined. Number 4, accuracy. The onus of accuracy of the data you hold is on you, and holding inaccurate data can even be a violation. Say you have the business email ID of a customer that has now changed jobs. They've reached out to you and informed you of this. At this point, your responsibility as a business is to delete the old data and update the new one in your database. GDPR states that every reasonable step must be taken to securely erase or modify data that is incomplete or inaccurate. The data should be corrected, modified, and updated as and when necessary, and inaccurate data that is no longer needed must be securely erased. Number 5, storage limitation. Everything in life has an expiry date, including the data you hold. If you're a subscription-based company, for example, it could be software or it could be media. Should a customer's subscription lapse without renewal, then data relating to their financial information should be deleted, since you no longer need it. According to GDPR, your business has to justify the length of time you're keeping data, communicate that to the user, and then delete any data that's reached the end of its life. Number 6, integrity and confidentiality. If you're holding on to a customer's data, it is your responsibility to keep it safe. As a business, you've never complained if your customers volunteered their data over. But with great power comes great responsibility. And if you collect a lot of information, say names, addresses, email IDs, phone numbers, payment information, you also need to protect it from external threats, unauthorized or unlawful processing, accidental loss, destruction, or damage. And finally, accountability. Documentation isn't optional, and an audit trail for all of the steps above is mandated. While it's good and well to say you're following GDPR principles, you also have to be able to prove it. A business must keep appropriate measures and records in place as proof of compliance and ready for supervisory authorities to check it anytime in case they're asked for it. This is typically where automation comes in, given the complexity and large number of moving parts. Larger still if you're a bigger organization. You need to automate your documentation and GDPR compliance system. Or lest you forget, Any deviations from these principles can lead to penalties of up to $20 million or 4% of your annual income, whichever is higher. Traditional GDPR certification involves a lot of manual work, policy creation, repeated human involvement that leads to these errors. But automation helps you get around that, and it helps you get GDPR compliant faster, more efficiently, and at a low cost. Companies just like yours that use Sprinto for GDPR save up to 80% of their time and effort when getting compliant. Visit sprinto.com or click the link in the description to learn more about it today. And as always, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section. We'll get back to you as soon as possible.